Hello there and welcome. In this video I got you 10 different tips, tricks, and strategies for underground builds in Age of Wonders 4. We're going to be talking about various points of interest in this playstyle, and I hope that by the end of this video you'll have a couple of ideas for your next underground run. It is a very different playstyle, that's the first thing that I have to say up front, but it is also a lot of fun. So number one, when you're playing underground, you have a big advantage. You have a realm that's much easier to defend. That is simply because almost all of the AI distributions favor more people living on the surface rather than living underground. So you usually have only one, maximum two AI enemies competing with you for real estate down there. So that's one thing where you just have a lot less pressure. And surface dwellers, they only can enter your realm on these choke points. So all in all, it's a lot safer to do your stuff underground, which is really, really lovely and something you can utilize, for example, for slower developing builds. If you don't have the expansionistic pressure of the surface world, you can afford to have a little bit of a slower early game. Number two, excavating. So you can pretty much excavate any body of earth underground, and that allows you to expand your realm and find new things. So far, so easy. The downside of all this is it does require a lot of personnel. Therefore, in the early game of your underground starts, I strongly recommend to just spread out your people and dig, because it's just so much to find. You will discover resources, sometimes even entire infestations, and there's just a lot of benefit. And most importantly, you can then see what you find out down there and plan your city development accordingly. In short, excavations, I see them more as a necessary evil on the subterranean, but on the other hand, I have the feeling as if your cities are on average a little bit richer in their material density down below rather than on the surface, but this might be a subjective impression. Would be interested what you are thinking about that. So, number three. Here's two things I really love to go for when I go subterranean, either or both even. So for one, underground adaptation obviously lets you start in the underground and is one of the key things. What I really like about this is you get to do farming downstairs, which is extremely important, and you have the excavation from the get-go, and you don't get bothered by any things down below. This is basically the necessity to settle down below and makes you have much more benefit from subterranean provinces. There's now an interesting little social policy or social trait that you can develop when you have it unlocked via Pantheon, and that's Subterranean Society. So this one is a really, really nice booster when you have it unlocked to your underground empires. It's definitely something worth checking out because it makes your underground cities just more powerful, and the extra Imperium income is very, very interesting, and so far as it bolsters your late game and your empire development. So much goodness in that, and if you don't have it unlocked yet, it is something you will be sort of missing out. It's not really a terrible thing, but I really recommend aiming towards that. I find that underground adaptation plus subterranean society is just excellent and amazing. Now, number four, a couple of things that just work excellent subterranean. Industrious culture is really, really nice downstairs because of their prospecting, but they also synergize extremely well with rock giants that allow them to terraform environments and let them double prospect. It's quite broken, and you should really try it out. And the other thing that I really find very, very synergistic right from the get-go with underground concepts is the Primal Spider. They got, for one, a pretty neat kit that you can utilize, lots of summons, which leaves you a lot of money to spend on city development, which is really nice. And they have, with the Primal Spider, a really strong research momentum, which helps you, how to speak, snowball faster in exchange for your slowest start, which is really nice. So, There's obviously also the Tome of Dungeons, or Tome of the Underground. I keep forgetting its name. The Materium one from the... It's Dungeon Depths. There. This one is also, if you have the DLC for it, I see it basically almost as a must-have for any underground realm, because there's so many ways of upgrading your underground provinces with that one, that this alone is already really, really worth it. It's just the dungeon property also makes it easier to defend your realm. Just some of the most synergistic items that I know about. Feel free to expand this in the comment section. So here goes number 5. Another little caveat that I have discovered while I was getting reacquainted with the underground: vision range. So vision range is an interesting stat down here, because you have a hard time discerning if walls are bedrock or earth from afar without getting your people closer to that. As you see here, we only see the outlinings and the shades, and generally speaking, exploration is way more difficult underground, and vision range enhancers are therefore much more precious than I have had the impression than up here. I mean, vision range is always a interesting utility stat, but underground I found it to be really, really helpful, much more than ever before. Also, the scout upgrades, the enchantments, the generic ones, also are extremely good here. So, number 6. Expansion in the underground just works a lot slower. That's something that I wouldn't know how to circumvent it. You travel slower between the provinces, you have to dig out lots of the area there. In general, you can't just snowball your expansionistic early game as hard as you can in the underground, but you can do a different interesting thing. Focusing on food income in the subterranean is a pretty viable strategy, because you have usually a lot of real estate around your cities that you can grow into. A little bit more about that on a later point, but here I just want to summarize: you grow slower due to the hostile environment, and it is worth specializing yourself more into the city growth, and finding a good spot for another city becomes way more of a chore, but absolutely mandatory to force this as quick as you can, because the more cities, the faster, the better. It's just what it is. So number 7, entrance outposts. So here's another nice little thing. You can just go to the surface, put up a outpost where things are interesting. I mean, look at this beauty here. Capture it and defend it. This way, enemies that want to invade your empire need to breach the outposts first, and that can be very, very good. Over the long time, you have more and more options to defend your outposts better and better, and spending some of your wealth into just defending the entrances to the surface, strategically important ones at the very least around you, can be extremely beneficial. And like I said, often I discovered that there's something interesting in the vicinity of these, and since you can just build on every outpost an expander that can claim a territory, you can even take quite much benefit out of your defensive strategies. Alternatively, you can obviously also put these outposts down below with the option to build a city here. I personally always differentiate between, do I want to build in this area here a city one day or not? Here, for example, definitely don't want to build a city here. We already have one, so a surface outpost would be more interesting on that regard. I think you get the idea. Alright, number 8, roads and teleporters. Due to the hostility of the environment in the subterranean, road building becomes so much more interesting. I have found that even within the cave walk that you get, yeah, it's just... roads are feeling much better, and teleporters are, in the long run, the best way to go over all these. So, as you see here, road building is 5 movement points, and let's see here. With cave adaptation, we get to treat the usual things also like roads, but If we look at this, there's lots of areas where we can't cross that, and everything falls flat the moment your army is no longer consisting only out of cultural units. Then you get the full impediment because army movement is always determined by the slowest grid in the chain, link in the chain. Therefore, I found roads to be, even though your cultural units ignore the subterranean problems, to be very beneficial because usually you pick up this and that. Teleporters are the best, especially because traveling from one end of your empire to the other is also on the surface already a burden. Down here, you often are limited to certain small bottlenecks that you need to traverse. And if you have the freedom to teleport back and forth, you have so much advantage over your enemy with the movement alone. Okay, number 9, large cities and the problems that come with that. So, due to the fact that we are usually growing our cities bigger rather than expanding aggressively, I mean, you ideally want a mixture of both if applicable, you have eventually cities that will suffer more from stability issues than others. Therefore, rush the buildings that give stability, but also take into account that you can pick up tomes, like the order tomes that increase city stability. Nature tomes provide city stability. Undead tomes provide city stability. There's plenty of methods that you can do that, but I found it for this type of playstyle especially important to get yourself one extra way to stabilize your cities, because I have a tendency to grow much bigger underground cities than surface cities. Maybe it's something I do wrong on surface, but I felt like the tendency is here much higher. Also, a last point, you can always invest a Whispering Stone into one of your cities to increase the city stability by up to 20 points. This is something that you can use if you really want to expand hard, but you just don't have any ways and means to keep your city stable. Pretty nice one. So, number 10, last but not least, when you're playing underground, you'll need a lot more personnel to get the underground going, but I strongly recommend to spend even more personnel into scouts and start plundering the surface as well. This is something I discovered to be a really, really interesting advantage that you have when you're playing Subterran. When you're playing on the surface, all your troops are severely hindered movement-wise by all that junk down here. Cave dwellers, as we have seen there, basically move through all this as if there were roads. Surface dwellers don't get that advantage and explore this much slower. But we don't get any disadvantages moving up here, besides not having adaptations for the terrain here. But most cultures only have a very selected few things that they can travel fast through. In short, when you're playing Subterran, you have a very, very strong strategical advantage in picking the best of both worlds by pilfering down below and upstairs. What I really like to do in this regard is doing the digging in the Subterran with troops that I actually want to use later for my formations, and keep my scouts for the surface where they can move fast. Because digging can be done by any unit. You don't need to use scouts specifically for that. Any military unit can dig out environment and be a scout downstairs below, because scouting is happening so slow anyways. Therefore, it's easier to push a couple of scouts extra onto the surface to get that sweet, sweet loot up there. This has been 10 things that I hope will help you making your underground adventures more successful and more fun. I really like Subterranean starts because it really does play a lot different than the regular start, and let me know what you know about it, because I'd feel like I really have only covered a glimpse of it. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, and feel free to donate via Ko-fi or any other given means that tickle your fancy. Big thanks to all of you helping out, and a big thanks for watching this video up until the very end. Appreciate your time and attention, and see you on the next one.